Hi, I'm John Hoganson.
And I'm Mike Carlson.
And we welcome you to another video edition of the St. Andrew's E-Update. Mike, today I want to talk about the text for this coming Sunday. It is from Matthew. It's just a phenomenal text.
Wait a minute. Why do you always got to use the Matthew text? There's some great stuff in the Old Testament. You got a problem with the Old Testament? What do you got against it?
I have nothing against it. Well, here, I want to talk about the text, Mike.
Well, I'm sure you do.
In Matthew, in the 18th chapter, the disciples come to Jesus in what?
I just don't know why you don't want to talk about the Old Testament.
Why are you being so oppositional?
I'm not. I'm just speaking for the prophets.
You're being absolutely. I think we should turn out the camera.
I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you.
All right, let's stop the camera. But just what's going on?
Well, I don't know, John. Every week, gospel, gospel, gospel. We got more than gospel here.
Actually, this is what we want to talk to you about. The text this weekend is about conflict. Mike, you love conflict?
I'm not afraid of it.
Okay, well, that's good, because I thought maybe you
I don't like it. I don't like it that much.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought so. And my guess is most of you don't like conflict as well. When I do premarital counseling with couples, I say that the question isn't, are you going to have conflict? The question is, when you have conflict, how are you going to handle it? Because conflict is indeed part of life. And I think both of us have met some families that they just love to argue, right?
It's like they're not getting along if they're not fighting about something.
And there are other families where they say they never have a fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet conflict is part of life. And when I was a chaplain years ago, I used to do a conflict resolution workshop, knowing that conflict is going to happen because we're people that have our own sets of eyes, our own minds. We see things differently. We process things differently. And so, Mike, when you're in a conflict situation, what's the first thing you try to do?
Well, it's not easy because a lot of times in conflict I want to get my stuff out.
And I thought what you were going to say is, well, I just try to prove how wrong they are.
Yeah, that's what we want to do, but I try. And my wife will tell you I don't always do it, but I try hard to listen.
I think you're a great listener.
What?
You're a great listener.
The first posture is to try and listen. If we can see where someone's coming from, I think that's half the battle.
Yeah. I always tell people to ask you, is it a conflict or a miscommunication? A miscommunication may be you come to me and go, boy, Pastor Sonorigi said this and this and this, and I get really mad, and I go into her office, and she goes, no, I didn't say that. That's a miscommunication. I think a conflict is we're on different sides of the issue. Like, let's say we all go out for lunch, and I go, boy, I don't know, let's go to this restaurant. You go, no, I want to go to McDonald's. And that happens a lot. And that's a conflict because you can't be in two places at the same time. So then when you're in that place, then you listen. You said, what else advice do you have for people who wrestle with conflict?
Well, from a purely scriptural standpoint, I like to remember that before Jesus, right and wrong isn't the issue. It's we're all broken. And we all got to pour ourselves out for forgiveness and help. And if we can start conflict from a place of humility instead of a place of righteous indignation, I think we've got one step closer to listening and to caring about each other.
I think that's a very humble perspective for you.
I'm good at being humble.
And in the text this weekend, the other thing it says, go to the person. It doesn't say sit and stew. It doesn't say get revenge. It says go to the person. Try to work it out. I always try to tell people, rather than focusing on the disagreement, look at the issue and say, what's mutually important to us? And how can we work at it from there? And then, Mike, it says, after you've gone to the person, if you can't work at it, it says, rather than wash your hands of the person forever, it says, no, you keep at it. And you try to work on the relationship. Because that's kind of the life Jesus calls us to.
And then in the end, conflict isn't always resolved. It isn't always beautiful and pretty. There aren't always winners. But there's always grace. There's always grace. Even Jesus, forgive them, they don't know what they're doing. Grace wins always.
And it's interesting, next week's text is all about forgiveness. And I think part of what Jesus calls us to do in this world that's so polarized and where we are so quick to walk away from someone or something if we disagree with them. Jesus says, no, you're to be a different kind of person. You're to go to them. You're to work at it. You're to keep at it. And even when you can't resolve it, rather than become angry and bitter, be that person of grace and be that person of forgiveness that Christ calls us to be.
And thank God, God has always been that way from us. Old Testament and New Testament. God is always loving and pursuing us.
Great point, Mike. Thanks for being with us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.